We put these rules in place after the collapse of the financial system because we wanted to reduce the risk that reckless gambling on Wall Street could ever again threaten jobs and livelihoods on Main Street.
Senator Elizabeth Warren today in the Senate giving a speech in which she basically whipped Democrats in the House to not vote for the government funding bill that Republicans have sent up from the House unless a last-minute provision relating to the big banks is taken out of that funding bill. Joining us now for the interview is Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. Senator Warren, thanks very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So specifically, what's your objection to this specific provision in the budget bill, and did you know it was coming?
So let's start with the second part. No, I did not know it was coming. I don't think anybody knew this was coming. But what the Republicans did is they pushed a bunch of terrible financial bills into the negotiations. A lot of attacks on Dodd-Frank, on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And the Democrats beat them back. But this is the provision that stayed, and it is a real stinker. What this one is about is that after the financial crash, we said to these big financial institutions, you've got to take the riskiest part of your trading, separate it out so that if it explodes, when it explodes, it's not going to take down the insured part of the business, the deposits that are insured by FDIC insurance. And that provision has been in Dodd-Frank all along. Everybody has adjusted to it. But what happens now in the spending bill is they just repeal that provision, which means that the taxpayers ultimately will be on the hook if they get out there, engage in derivatives trading, and it blows up the entire financial institution or the entire economy. You know, this is just one of those, this is a basic safety and soundness provision. And it only applies to just a handful of the biggest financial institutions in this country. So what's really going on here? Well, they can make more money if they can do all of this business under the umbrella of their insured operations. They want the American taxpayers to subsidize their risk-taking. They'll take all the profits when it works and push the losses off on everyone else if it blows up.
The Republican lesson from the bailout, from the financial crisis, at least on the very far right side of the Republican Party, was supposedly that the bailouts were a bad idea, that the taxpayers getting involved in trying to save any part of the economy is a bad thing, it's ideologically odious, and that we should never do this again. It's hard. I'm surprised that there is not an outcry on the right about this, that the Tea Party caucus and others aren't looking at this and saying this is a taxpayer giveaway that isn't good for anybody other than these lobbyists.
No kidding. In fact, the title of the provision is no bailouts. I mean, that's what this is about. So every Republican and every Democrat who votes for the omnibus with the repeal in it is voting to say, you know, we're going to take out the part that says no bailouts for derivatives trading. You'd think everybody would say, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. But do keep in mind, this was a provision that was written by Citigroup lobbyists. I mean, they literally wrote it. They took it back, they re-edited it, and made sure it said exactly what they wanted it to say. The biggest financial institutions in this country can make more money if this little provision gets stripped out of Dodd-Frank, and that's why we're here to fight.
In terms of the practical and timely politics of this right now, John Boehner knows that he's going to have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 defections from his own side in trying to pass the government funding bill. He knows that he needs votes from the Democratic side, from Nancy Pelosi's troops on the Democratic side, in order to get this thing passed. Nancy Pelosi has not said that she's, whipping against this and she wants Democrats definitely to get in line with her objections to this, but her objections to this were loud and voiced very clearly today and repeatedly. Do you think that this is, or do you have indications that this call that you've made and that Nancy Pelosi is now making will actually deprive John Boehner of enough votes that this might stop the passage of the whole bill?
You know, I think this is about the leadership, obviously, in the House. This is about what we asked for, but I think this is really about democracy. I think this is about getting out and exposing what's going on to the American people, and then the American people speaking up themselves, saying, we're not going to put up with this. You know, I want to say to anybody who's watching this, I hope they'll go to ElizabethWarren.com. We've put something up on our website to say, sign on to tell the people in the House of Representatives, we're not putting up with business like this, where these terrible provisions get crammed at the last minute into a bill that's absolutely essential to keep the government up and running. That is not how we should be doing business in Washington. And I think the folks in the House right now who've got the chance to strip this provision out need to hear from the American people over it. That's why I'm here tonight, and that's what I'm going to keep getting out there and fighting for. Tomorrow morning, we'll see what happens.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, thank you very much for your time tonight. I have no idea how this is going to end. Thanks for helping us understand your take on it. I appreciate it. Thank you. It is the dynamic here that is unusual is that the Republicans have put this in, right? The Republicans put this in. This was never debated. Nobody had any warning this was coming. The Republicans made sure this is in at the last minute. And now the Republicans need the Democrats to help them pass it in order to get it through. They can't do it on their own. Democrats just have to decide if they're going to help them do this. I think Democrats have been looking for an excuse not to vote for this thing, and I think they just got it. Stay with us.